This is our last council meeting tonight for our councillors. We finish our term officially 6 a.m. Saturday morning, so this is our last council meeting. Before we go into the confidential section of the council meeting, I will be making some remarks about my fellow councillors and officers, and then I'll ask those councillors if they would like to make a comment also before we go into the confidential items. I do apologise, I'm just letting a dog in the door. Mr. CEO, do we have any apologies?
No, Mr. Mayor, no apologies.
No apologies, thank you. Councillors, any pecuniary interest or conflicts of interest?
No.
No, councillors, I'll just inform you that I do have a conflict of interest in regard to, in the planning matters of Queen C33, which is Murray Road, and also item 220-046 Nelson Road, as well as in the past, due to the closeness of where I reside permanently. We have no leave of absence of councillors. Public question time, 5.1, public question status update. I'll just read something in relation to the public question one taken on notice last month. We have identified an error on page 2 of the letter sent on 23rd of September. The first paragraph on page 2 should read as follows. Without the one-off write-offs associated with the termination of the Destination Queenscliff project, the Borough of Queenscliff would have made an underlying surplus for the year. And while the total write-off value is funded through a capital grant and does not affect council's cash position, accounting standards do not provide for capital grants to be considered when calculating the underlying deficit. So the new recommendation, councillors, that council note the public question update as amended in adjunct to item 5.1, summarising the status of questions that were not fully responded to at the council meeting on September 17, 2020, and were taken on notice.
I'll move that amendment.
That's moved by councillor Merriman.
I'll second it.
Second, councillor Pizzi, who's waving in the background. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. So moved. Thank you.
That's Appendix 4.
Yes, that is correct. Item 5.1, public questions. We have no public questions tonight. Item 6.1, ordinary meeting of council. The officer recommendation is there, councillors. Can I get someone remove the recommendation that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council of the Borough of Queenscliff held on 17th of September 2020 and as distributed be confirmed as an accurate record? Moved councillor Pizzi, seconded councillor Minty. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. So moved. Item 6.2, special meeting of council. The recommendation that the minutes of the special meeting of council to the Borough of Queenscliff held on 8th of October 2020 as distributed be confirmed as an accurate record.
I'll move that.
That's moved councillor Merriman, seconded councillor Salter. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. Councillors, item 7, record of assembly of councillors. That is, a list is there in adjunct to item 7. Recommendation that the record of assembly of councillors as presented in adjunct to item 7 be noted. That's moved by councillor Salter, seconded councillor Minty. Thank you. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. Item 8, notice on motion. 8.1, notice on motion status update. There are no motions on notice outstanding. 8.2, motion on notice. Number 220-582, installation of dog poo bag dispensing units in Hesse Street. The background, I've put this, as you can see that I have put this motion on notice. I think it's something which we've been moving towards over the last few years, and I think it's really been highlighted in recent times, particularly with that we've been in isolation, we've been in COVID, that more and more people are turning to their little furry friends as a company, and also therefore spending a lot more time with their four-legged friends around the streets. not just on the beaches and parks, but also in the streets of Queenscliff and Point Lonsdale. I think this is a good time, and as I said, the recommendation that council install a dog poo dispensing units on each side of Hesse Street between Stoke and Hobson Streets, Queenscliff, prior to the summer holidays.
Happy to second this.
So I've
I'll
moved
move
it.
that.
It's moved by Councillor Minty and seconded by Councillor Salter. Any discussion, more discussion, councillors? Councillor Minty?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I've had a number of representations on this matter, and whilst I don't believe it is a major problem of dog dirt in the streets of in Hesse Street, after speaking to a number of residents close to the area who visit on a regular basis, it is actually a facility that I think is worthwhile installing, because I think that the number of visitors that do make it to Hesse Street and that are caught short, this is an excellent way providing a facility that we provide everywhere else, whether it's on the beaches or down into the park areas. And it just seems like a logical extension of keeping our streets clean as possible and providing a service for our residents, our visitors and their pets. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Minty. So Councillor Salter, did you want to?
Yes, I did. Thank you. I'm very pleased to see it's called a motion on notice. And we have had many representations about this issue at many listing posts, and I think finally councillors are resolving that something has to be done about it. It is our gift to the future.
Thanks, Councillor Salter. Any other councillors wish to speak? No, thank you. I'll just quickly add, as I've put in here in the background, I also, with the amount of the increase in outdoor dining, which is who knows how far that's going to go in the future, I think people will be actually bringing their dogs to outdoor dining more in the streets of Queenscliff and Point Lonsdale. So I think it's really apt that we pass this motion tonight. So
I hope they don't get charged for attendance.
thank you.
I think you need to be careful about passing the motion there, Rob.
Thank you. So we have a move and a second. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Unanimous. So passed. Thank you very much, councillors. Item 10, functions attended. As you can see, there's a list there of functions attended. The recommendation that the functions attended report be received.
Moved.
Moved Councillor Merriman, seconded Councillor Salter. Thank you. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So moved. Reports, community wellbeing, local economy and environmental sustainability. We have no reports. Item 14, planning and heritage. 14.1, planning and heritage report. We'll hand over to Mr. Rajaratnam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, councillors and officers. Council, this is your normal monthly planning permit activity report, which I'm sure you've seen many times now. The summary status of all applications is listed on the table there for you, and further detail on these applications can be found in the subsequent pages of the report. You'll note, Council, that we've issued 11 permits this month, which is the highest in the time that I've been on council, at least within the organisation. And whilst I'd love to take credit for it, I have to take the opportunity to thank the hard work done by the planning team in making a bit of a dent on our outstanding planning list. Council, the officer's recommendation is at the bottom of page 10, and I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Johan. Officers, there is a recommendation that the planning permit activity report be received. That's moved by Councillor Pizzey. Seconded Councillor Merriman. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. So moved. Thank you. So we move to item 15, governance and performance. We have the Council Plan 2017-21 quarterly report against the 2020-21 implementation plan as at 30th September 2020. I'll hand over to the CEO, Mr. Gill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor, very happy to present this report to you tonight. And as I'm sure we all noted, the first quarter seems to have gone very, very quickly. Also happy to present the new format for reporting, and we hope that it's more accessible for both yourselves and for our community. And it certainly, introducing the colour makes it clear what we have achieved and what we haven't achieved. And I think that's a good outcome and makes us a bit more accountable and transparent. We have had a good quarter. Only 3 of the planned activities weren't completed, and those 3 were as a result of the impacts of the COVID pandemic. So overall, I'm very proud to say that the staff have continued their good work. They've continued to produce and to complete projects as they come up. So I'd just like to present this report to you, and hopefully you feel the same in terms of the achievements for the first quarter.
Thank you very much, Mr.
I'm prepared to move it and I wish to speak to it, please.
Okay, thanks. It's moved by Councillor Merriman, seconded Councillor Pizzi. Questions and comments, Councillor Merriman?
Yes, thank you. Again, I endorse what the CEO, Martin Gill, has said to us in respect to this report. I think it reflects a good quarter's report, a good quarter of good hard work, particularly given the circumstances in which work is now having to be performed. I think the report itself is very clear and is well set out, and it's a good development. I only hope that we can continue to live with the challenges that are in this report, and particularly the council plan itself, given that it's got another year to run. And particularly, I go to page 18 of the report and item 4. I hope that we can continue to preserve and enhance the borough as a special place through excellence of design and conservation of its rich culture and unique heritage. And I hope that becomes utmost in the mind of people when we finalise the hub project. But I move the adoption of this.
Thank you. Councillor Pizzi?
I'm very happy to second this, Mayor, and congratulate the CEO on getting it all together. I have got a question for him, and that's really, what is the difference between in progress and ongoing?
That's a good question, Councillor Pizzi. Ongoing is essentially like a program in that it doesn't really have an end date. It's something that we continue to do. In progress are projects that do have a completion or an end date, and they may be set out across a couple of quarters during the year. So that's the distinction there.
Is that point made in the explanation of the report?
Yeah, on page 18 of 44.
Yeah.
You'll see under the discussion there's just a little description of the different titles or the different titles for the different actions. So we've got completed, achieved, not achieved, ongoing, in progress, not scheduled to commence. So we give a little bit, but happy to provide a bit more of a thorough explanation for.
I sort of understand it. It's not the meaning I got out of the words anyway. But
okay, yeah, no, we can have a look at that.
Yeah, I'm very happy and happy, very, very pleased to support Councillor Merriman's sentiments as well as his motion.
We should apply them.
Thank you, Councillor Pizzi. Councillors, any other discussion? No, I would just quickly endorse Councillor Merriman and Pizzi's comments, in particular when you look at the overall result and the 3% that wasn't completed were obviously the library, caravan parks and information centre, which obviously have a direct impact from COVID. So I'm completely out of the manager's control, and so it's a job really well done, and congratulations to all concerned, Mr. CEO.
Thank you.
Councillors, we do have a mover and a second. All those in favour of the council plan?
Aye.
All right.
Aye. Thank you. 15. Item 15.2, 2020-21 quarterly financial report as of 30th September 2020. I'm going to hand over to our Manager Financial Services, Gihan. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, the purpose of this report is to provide information on Council's financial performance for the first 3 months to 30th September and year-end position expected to be achieved at 30th June 2021. As mentioned on the page 27 of the agenda, the forecast cash result for the year is a deficit of 434,000, an increase of 104,000 on the budgeted cash deficit. This increase is mainly due to the additional budget allocations listed on the page 27 of the agenda. The savings in insurance expenses and part of 1920 additional cash surplus are used to fund these additional budget allocation. After these adjustments, and at the same time, due to the shift in timing, further 886,000 capital projects and 265,000 operating projects have been carried over from 1920 via reserve transfers with a nil impact on the cash result. So after all of these adjustments, 18,000 accumulated cash surplus is projected for 2021. Underlying result for the year is a deficit of 1.5 million, an increase of 263,000 against the budget, and mainly due to the impact of those additional operating projects carried over from 1920. So in line with the council strategy of achieving a break-even underlying result cumulatively, the forecast accumulated underlying surplus stand at 700,000 at 30th June 2021. As at 30th September, we have 7.8 million financial assets, that is cash and investments, of which 5.9 million has been allocated for specific future purposes. The council settled in full the existing loan and currently has 0 debt on the balance sheet after 12 years. During the last 3 months, 534,000 has been spent on capital projects against the forecast of 8.4 million for the year. Explanations for key variance against the budget are included at Appendix 2. Sorry, councillors, there's an error again. The agenda says the key variance against the December forecast. Sorry, that needs to be changed as the key variance against the budget. Further, as summarized on the page 28 of the agenda, Council will continue to be considered low risk in all but 2 WAGO financial sustainability indicators for 2021 financial year. As mentioned earlier, the forecast accumulated underlying surplus stand at 700,000, though underlying deficit is forecasted for the year. The internal financing ratio, the most of the capital expenditure included in the 2021 forecast is funded through money held in reserve and capital grant to be reserved from external sources, that having an impact on the internal financing ratio for the year. Due to the timing of the September quarterly report, a full review of the budget is generally not carried out until the mid-year review. Even the impact of the second outbreak of COVID-19 in Victoria has not been factored into this forecast. Officers continue to monitor development and believe that more information will be available by December for a comprehensive review of 2020-21 projections. The recommendation before you tonight, councillors, is set out on page 26 of the agenda.
I'm prepared to move and not wish to speak to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Merriman. Can I get a second for the motion? Seconded, Councillor Salter. Back to you, Councillor Merriman. Question and statement.
again, a very good report and good hard work. Can I just look at the question of where we think we may be at the end of the financial year? And given that you've moved it to the 434,000 deficit, does that take into account all of the benefits that we've decisions that we've taken in respect of the COVID virus, and the question of where we are likely to be when we come out of this, say we come out in the first quarter of next year? So are you confident that the 434,000 will be the final outcome, or do you think it'll be greater?
If I speak through Mr. Mayor, Councillor Merriman, yes, now in the forecast, we have included all concessions that we have decided to provide to the businesses and the community. Even one of those concessions was creating of 90,000 COVID support fund. Even we have included that in the forecast. So this 434,000 is even after considering creating that reserve. In the forecast, what we have considered in relation to the caravan park, we have assumed we will not earn any income for first 3 months of this financial year, that is July to September. But in reality, already we have earned closer to 90,000 income from the caravan park.
Okay, so there's thank you for that response. And I think the outstanding feature of this report, which makes certainly all of us very happy, is the fact that after 12 years we don't have any debt. I think that's an achievement in itself. Thank you for the report.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Merriman. Councillor, anyone else like to make a comment? No, thank you. So we do have a mover and a seconder. All those in favour?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you. And thank you, Gihan, once again for an excellent report. Councillors, item 15.3, Borough of Queenscliff 1920 annual report. I'll hand first over to the CEO, Mr. Gill. Thank you, Mr. Gill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I do hand to Connor, I just wanted to acknowledge the work that Connor and Matt Gibbs have done on this report. They've organised the whole staff to contribute. They've coordinated, the collection of data, financial information, and a whole range of stories that have occurred during the period between June 2019 and June 2020. And I think I just want to acknowledge the outstanding work that they've done and the quality of the product that they've produced. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for allowing me that indulgence.
My pleasure. Thank you. Now handing over to Connor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Martin. So what you will have attached in the appendix is the annual report for 2019-20's financial year, as required by the Local Government Act. We will have a printed copy available for you as soon as I can get them to you. Obviously, the challenges of the coronavirus pandemic make that difficult, but certainly they are on their way. So this annual report complies with the legislative requirements of the Act, and it details the achievements of Council during the 2019-20 financial year, and also measures our performance against some of the targets we set ourselves. While the coronavirus pandemic and effects dominate much of this report, there are still significant highlights included within its pages. Some of those successes include a retention of a 0-hour waiting list for Council's aged care services, the introduction of an extensive financial support and hardship services in response to the coronavirus pandemic, the installation of a number of new footpaths in direct response to community feedback from the year's budget consultation, the declaration of a climate emergency, and the beginning of coordination of a response planning for that with local residents, the creation of a successful 3225 Love Local, Shop Local campaign for our local businesses from our economic development team, a rigorous audit program's completion, as exciting as it sounds, and a significant improvement in this year's community satisfaction survey metrics. It is also worth noting that one of the features of the financial report is its transparency, and that not just reports the successes that we have had, but also notes some of the disappointments and challenges that have occurred throughout the financial year. And and it's an important way of demonstrating a complete picture of what the year has looked like, and it's certainly in the end of that financial year, a challenging financial year for council, demonstrates that quite clearly. A recent feature of Council's annual reports has been the use of the chapter introduction pages to highlight some of the occasionally unspoken achievements or programs from throughout the financial year. Last year's report we used to highlight the achievements of some council staff. This year's report features members of our community here in Queenscliff, which is the reason we do what we do. Many of them speaking about some of the programs and things they've achieved in the year, in many cases with council's financial support. So thank you certainly to those residents, those community groups who shared their stories with us and took some photos. It's wonderful to be able to feature not just some of the work that council does, but how the work that council does builds up our community groups and builds up our members of our community. So the full financial report is attached in the appendix, and the recommendation is on page 31.
Thank you. We have a recommendation, councillors. Do we have a mover for that recommendation? So move Councillor Pizzey, seconded.
I'll second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Minty. Discussion, councillors? Councillor Pizzey, you moved the motion. Do you wish to speak to it?
I need to commend the team on putting it together, Mayor. It's in the past we've won awards for the annual report, and if anything, I think this is the best I've seen. But there's always more that can be said, but I think it's an excellent report, and I'm happy to have it as my swan song, if you like.
Councillor Minty.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Reports like these are extraordinarily difficult to put together, and having worked for organisations that have required annual reports to basically encapsulate what's gone on for the year, we forget, because COVID-19's really been with us since probably, I know it's from the start of the year, but really from February, March, where it's really sort of hammered us, and we've had to take made certain changes and support our businesses and our residents during that. I think the report identifies a lot of financial data, and whilst I didn't say well done to Gihan during his presentation, I will say that certainly in the way that the document presents the financial information as well. I think for our residents to get a copy, I would recommend that absolutely, so that you know, sit by a fireside at some stage and actually see what your council does. I think that is something worthwhile. It's not a joke. It is. I quite enjoy reading documents like this, and have read this document cover to cover, and it's certainly something, and it demonstrates the work that your council and the council officers in particular have done for you in the year. And I think it's a great document to encapsulate all of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Minty. I'd just add that I think that kind of both yourself and Matt and all the team should be congratulated. I guess, you know, looking at the detail, I really liked pages 13 to 17, which really gives a good summary of our achievements, our disappointments, and also obviously the challenges this year. And I don't think there's many challenges we've had in the past that we've had to put up with in the last, since February, March this year, and that's certainly highlighted in this annual report as well. So congratulations, Connor, and if you could please pass on our thanks to Matt as well. Councillors, any other councillors like to comment? No? We have a mover and a second. All those in favour?
Aye.
So moved. Thank you very much. Item 16, authorisation. We have no reports to consider. Question without notice. We have no questions without notice outstanding. 17.2, question without notice. Councillors, do we have any questions without notice? No, thank you. Councillor, there is a list of council meetings coming up. So the next council meeting will be the Thursday, the 26th of November at 7 p.m. And that obviously will be the first meeting of the new council. As I alluded to earlier, before we go into our confidential section of the agenda tonight, I'd just like to make a few comments, given that this is our last council meeting. We're just about to complete our 4-year term. Firstly, can I just thank the CEO, Martin Gill, and everyone involved from the staff at the Borough of Queenscliff, but also any volunteer. Well, obviously, we have quite a lot of volunteers as well. And obviously, it's I've had the privilege of working as the new mayor with what was then the new CEO as well, and I certainly appreciate the feedback and the candid approach that we've been able to take in regard to the council operation. So thank you, Martin. Also, thank you to Jackie, who's hiding behind the screen here somewhere. Jackie is the executive assistant to the CEO and councillors, and she's tried as hard as possible to keep us councillors in line, and many times she's tried to keep us councillors online as well. But as we know, the past year is not what we were expecting, and it's certainly, I'd like to thank my fellow councillors again for the tremendous work we've been able to do, particularly in this last year, which has been very challenging, but also for the whole 4 years. It's been a really good time, and I've certainly enjoyed it. We've been able to keep the wheels turning these last 9 months during COVID, and it really is a credit to the team led by Martin and the executive management and all staff and volunteers that work for our community in the Borough of Queenscliff. I'd just like to also, who's not here, but also thank Councillor Tony Francis. As we know, Tony was elected back in 2016. Unfortunately, with the sale of his business late last year, he was unable to continue as a councillor. But what he brought to this council was a lot of passion. And even though he no longer lives in the borough, I know he has a great love for the Borough of Queenscliff, and we hope to see him back here for many years to come. I guess the positive of Tony Francis resigning was that Councillor Minty joined us late last year, and I think from day one, Rob, you've certainly been able to contribute on a high level, and obviously being a full-time resident here in the borough and been down here for quite some time, you've been very passionate about everything that's happened in the borough, and basically since the day that you came on board. Obviously, you've also represented the borough on various committees in that short period, including the G21 environment pillar. So thanks, Rob, for your help and your assistance, and also obviously best of luck for the upcoming election. Obviously, Councillor Pizzey, we all wish that we could have seen a lot more of you in person this year, but obviously based in Melbourne, we did get to see you quite often on Zoom, but we certainly are looking forward to you being able to come down and be a regular visitor once Metro Melbourne is allowed to visit again. So we look forward to seeing you and having a catching up in person for many years to come. Obviously, Councillor Pizzey has made a significant contribution to the borough, both as a resident and greatly over the past 4 years as a councillor. He's obviously assisted all councillors and officers in planning and obviously everything that's heritage. He's certainly been a great ambassador for planning and heritage. Boyce has also represented the borough on the G21 planning and economic development pillars. And Boyce, on behalf of your fellow councillors, but also everyone in the community, we'd like to thank you for your contribution that you've made to the borough, and I'm sure in one way or another you will continue to do that as well. Councillor Susan Salter, 8 years as a councillor. It's fabulous, and I think when you think of Councillor Salter, I just think of community, and Susan loves her community. I think she may love her trees, plants and trees a little bit more than everyone else. And that's who she is. She's a great ambassador for the Borough of Queenscliff. and her work on the Avenue of Honour reference group is really testament to that, and for everyone to see that the hard work that Councillor Salter has done. Obviously, Councillor Salter took the reins for 1 year, and also myself as a new mayor has been extremely helpful in guiding me through the time as being a new mayor. Councillor Salter sat on many committees over the past 8 years, too many to mention, but obviously G21 board member, G21 education pillar. I'm sure that Councillor Salter was very upfront and let her thoughts known, in particular with the education pillar. We've all seen it ourselves when we've been lectured by Teacher Salter many times at council. And I think also last December, Councillor Salter moved the motion to declare a climate change emergency. I think that's, that's something which Councillor Salter should be very proud of, and the work she did in bringing that resolution to council was fabulous. So with obviously Councillor Salter is standing again, so we wish you the best of luck, Susan, with this year's election. I think we may have even lost Susan off the Zoom, but I'm sure she can look back and listen to all the good things we've said about her. But also, Susan, our community thanks you for the amount of work you've done over the past 8 years. And no matter what happens with the elections, I know you'll contribute to this community as you have done even before becoming a councillor, and the community is much better for your contribution that you've made to this borough. Councillor Merriman, I've put here in my notes in capital letters, wow, 12 years, and just completing 4 years, so 12 years. Well done, Bob. It's an amazing effort. Obviously, last year as the mayor, and then obviously, and you were also mayor for 4 years from 2012. You're currently our governance portfolio holder, and I couldn't have thought of a better person to look after governance. You're meticulous in your reading, and you won't let anything go past the keeper, so to speak, because I know you love cricket thoughts, but certainly your work in governance and finance should be congratulated. Obviously, Bob has also been on the G21 board and also on the G21 sports pillars as well, plus I'm sure numerous committees over many years before I came on to council as well. He's also chaired our Coast Committee, which has been a really important committee, and that's in working with our friends from the City of Greater Geelong and the Geelong Queenscliff Coastal Adaptation Program, which aims to assess the impacts of climate change on coastal areas on the Balloon Peninsula, and in particular the Borough of Queenscliff. So congratulations on the work you've done there, Bob, and hopefully you'll continue to do that work in many years to come. In closing, I think our community is better for having Councillor Merriman's contribution over the past 12 years. Our community, our borough is a lot better off with the contribution you've made, Bob. And I know that you will contribute in many ways, in many forms in the community for many years to come. And certainly, Bob, our thanks are to you on behalf of our community, but also on behalf of the Borough of Queenscliff staff, team, and also your fellow councillors. And thank you very much. Thank you.
Well done, Bob.
Here. Thank you. I will just go back. Councillor Minty, did you want to make any comments as we're close?
I would, thank you, Mayor. Yes, as the junior member of the organisation here, I think it's probably fair to take the wheels off. I will be very brief. First, I would like to thank the residents of the Borough of Queenscliff for the opportunity to represent them on council. It's been a great honour. I've been a councillor for 10 months, and whilst my joining the council could have gone either of two ways, I would like to also thank the CEO, Martin Gill, and his staff for their understanding and support in keeping me on the straight and narrow. I would also like to thank my fellow councillors for their understanding. The present. I've enjoyed representing residents of the borough and progressing things that matter most to them. Much of my time on council has been during the COVID-19 period, which has made it difficult to consult with residents as widely as I would have liked. I'm sure we all would agree. But as we all know, there are still plenty of projects to go on with that have been sitting on the back burner and need championing to get them started again. These weren't my special projects. These were major issues that the residents had worked hard to get onto the agenda because they mattered so much to them. Most are now very much back on the agenda. I would also like to thank the many individuals that have given me encouragement during my time on council. Your good wishes have reassured me I was on the right track. For the same reason, I would also like to thank the representatives of many of the groups and organisations for their words of support and advice. It has been much appreciated. Finally, I would like to thank my wife and family for their support. The future. This is not a push for votes, as I'm sure most people have already voted, and if they haven't, it's probably not going to matter very much anyway. To all those running for council and who will be successful, be guided by the CEO and staff regarding how the system works, because this will give you the path to effectiveness. Remember who you represent, their aspirations and amenity. The skill you will most use is how to listen, because it is at that point you will bring their ideas to the table for discussion with colleagues and council officers. To the residents of the borough, I say what I have said many times: keep us accountable and continue to demand better from your representatives. You, like us, may not be right all the time, but keep those ideas coming. Thank you for your support and good luck to our next council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Minty. Councillor Pizzi, would you like to make any closing comments?
Yes, I would actually. A good friend of mine, when I stood for council, said, "Well, you're going to have a very demanding time. It's a wonderful world, the world of local government. It's very interesting and it's very challenging." I was 68 at the time, and I was just wondering whether that wasn't a bit of a poison chalice that was being passed to me. But the fact is that it has been interesting and challenging. I've chosen not to stand again. A member of the press asked me why I wasn't standing, and I said, I'm too old, I'm too slow, and I'm too stupid. And the fact is that it is a demanding role, and at my stage of life, I've decided that in a way, the frustrations of things not happening quickly it rubs a bit of salt into the wound. And I think the fact that we haven't achieved quite as much as we wanted to when we started this 4-year term doesn't mean that it's been a waste of time for me. I've learned a hell of a lot, and I've gained a lot of insight into people of Queenscliff and enjoyed their company immensely. I do think the nature of Queenscliff remains a very special thing and leaves it full of possibilities, some of which we've started, some of which we have yet to finish. I'd also like to reflect on Councillor Merriman. Bob told me once that council becomes addictive, and I want to retire before I get addicted. My capacity to contribute as much as Bob has contributed, I'm afraid, isn't quite as strong. However, I do think that the thing that I would like to leave for some consideration is not only a thanks to the staff, both staffs that we've had, and to reflect that I leave the council with an enormous respect for the capacity of the current staff to take us forward, an enormous gratitude for the support and tolerance they've shown me, but also at the same time, the same comments in relation to you and the rest of the team, Mayor, the rest of the councillor team. I would like also, though, to add, and it is to do with the nature of Queenscliff and what I think Queenscliff can become, and that is the contribution of the people of Queenscliff to our decision making and to the management of their own affairs. In my view, in the Point Lonsdale Lighthouse Reserve reference group, I saw the potential of the people of Queenscliff to engage in their own democracy. And to me, that is the challenge that remains. Queenscliff is the smallest administrative unit in Victoria, and it's special because of that. And people see it as special because of that, because Canberra and the state government do not provide, in a lot of cases, satisfying ways to live life, whereas Queenscliff can. And if I've got a regret in leaving before that potential is realised, I'm satisfied that we've made a start, and I think Susan's efforts in the climate emergency issue are another huge example of how much latent capacity there is in the community to deliver a terrific lifestyle down here in a very special place. So thank you all, and especially thank you to the people of Queenscliff who have contributed to our debate, have come along and represented things, and who, whilst often we may not agree with what they want or say, are really the part of the lifeblood of this community. So I wish everyone well. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Pizzey. Well said. Councillor Salter, would you like to say some words?
I've changed devices. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So it has been a very great privilege to be a councillor in the Borough of Queenscliff for 8 years. There has been some good achievements and many losses. As ever, I was on the Save the Borough Committee 30 years ago, and the heartbeat of the town, of the towns that saved the borough 30 years ago is still going strong in our community. And that is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I have every confidence that they will continue to be in all councillors' ears, giving them grief about what they do or do not do. A very great thank you to all the staff, past and present. There have been many staff coming and going, and some we've even lost along the way. And thank you to my fellow councillors, and really thank you to my community. It's just been a delight, mostly. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Susan. Councillor Merriman, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the kind comments that you made. When I first joined some 12 years ago, there were a couple of key issues running that was a good education for a new councillor. And that was, of course, the new harbour, where we had community, excuse me, a community meeting of something like 600 people in the fire brigade location, all complaining about the new harbour. We also had, of course, we had the Stocklands, which became the Point. We were part of that because of the Point Lonsdale structure plan. And again, there was vicious opposition to what was going to happen there. And obviously, flowing on from the harbour question was the question of the rates that they had to pay. So I started my council life in conflict, and it was huge conflict. And we added to it in the first 3 months by having, again, another 600 people attend council meeting complaining about a decision we'd taken in respect of climate change. So the first 2 or 3 months that I was in council was an interesting time of who was going to find themselves maybe in jail, maybe out of office, maybe anything. But when one examines all of that, if you have a look at the harbour now, isn't that a beautiful place? Isn't that something special for us? You have a look at the Point. Just drive through the Point and have a look at what it is now compared with what it was. Very successful. And yes, with the question of climate change, we finally did do something, and we're still doing something. And what that does and says to me, and looking back at the success of those items, it gives me a what if feeling. What if we'd been able to go ahead with Destination Queenscliff? What if we'd been able to do Shortlands Bluff? What if we'd been able to do Point Lonsdale Reserve? Given the success of the ones that I've outlined, maybe they would have been successful too. But that is the nature of Queenscliff and the beauty of Queenscliff. Some successes, some different. But then when I look at where we did go over a period, fortunately, we had a lot of good wins. And we must thank our staff for all the work. And we've been very fortunate in my time in council to have outstanding staff and outstanding leaders within that staff. Particularly, I nominate our CEO, Lenny Jenner, and our current CEO, Martin Gill. Very fortunate to be able to find a person of Martin's quality in an open field, as we had to in the last 12 months. But when I look at the successes, the development of the kindergarten, the Point Lonsdale Surf Life Saving Club, the front beach at Point Lonsdale, where we managed to get proper traffic control, and the beautiful job that we did of that park. Point Lonsdale, the board riders and the area that they've done. The outpost of the Point Lonsdale Surf Life Saving Club, which disappeared somewhere towards Tasmania in the storms, and we managed to get a design there that's got through every storm that we've had since. The Maritime Museum, getting the fishing co-op for them and developing that area further. The Recreation Reserve, obviously, with football, netball and cricket. The Jellybrand Street and that road itself and the park, the development of those parks. Beautiful area. Senior citizens, the Sea Scouts, the job that we did there. Finally, the repair of the creek pier that was falling into the creek for many, many years. And obviously the battle that we had in respect of whether we fed something from the sea or not. But the facilities that are now there, you look at those and you walk along there, and that's a credit to those people that did all that work. But then I must consider things that have not been completed that I hope the new council will take up and look at very seriously. The Ramsar site declaration for Lakers Cutting. I'd like to see a follow-up finalisation to the invitation we received from the Premier to the questions we put to him at the last G21 meeting, where all to do with climate change. The question of where we go with notifying people who are now find their properties or trees or whatever on the new heritage listing. What are we doing with Hesse Street North? Where are we with the remainder of Murray Road? What are we going to do about additional cabins that are so vital to the revenue that we receive? Where are we going to finish up with moving the boundary or not? And obviously, I still think there's a big work to be done with a proper fire plan for Point Lonsdale. But that's all for those that are lucky enough, and hopefully many that are currently serving will be on the next council. I do also reflect on some of the things that maybe we missed out on. Missing out on the fort after we had it in our grasp was a very, very sad one to take. Missing out on getting the front beach the way we wanted it. And the lesser role now of a group called what was the Business Community Group that used to meet once a month under Graham Christie's great leadership. I think that's reflected badly on the feedback we get in the community, and I'd like to see that reactivated. We've been very fortunate in my time to have great support from politicians. Lisa Neville has been outstanding in support that she has given us over the time that I've served. Sarah Henderson in her role. Libby Coker is currently, of course. Before Sarah Henderson, Darren Cheeseman. Darren Cheeseman, he helped us a hell of a lot in the early days. Darren Chester's been good to us too. Tim Pallas helped us immeasurably in the redoing of the road over at Point Lonsdale. So it's an important relationship. It's a very important relationship for the Borough of Queenscliff, and we've been fortunate to have such good people assist us and serve as either ministers or members of state and federal parliament. I very much have enjoyed your role, Ross, as the last 12 months as mayor. I think you've done an outstanding job, and I wish you and Rob and Susan the best in the election coming up. And finally, I would not have been able to serve these 12 glorious years, which I've greatly enjoyed, unless the Borough of Queenscliff people supported me. I thank them for that. I also thank Elaine Cameron for the support she gave me throughout that period. And finally, of course, my wife, Beth. And as I often said, if I stood again, I couldn't afford a second divorce. She's been outstanding and I love her and she's been great to me. And I enjoy every moment that I've served on this marvellous council, the Borough of Queenscliff. And long may it be independent and long may it enjoy the beauties of the area. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Bob, and fabulous words. And I think all listening know that you're speaking from the heart. And as I said earlier, when thanking you, that certainly the borough is a better place for having you been involved for the past 12 years. Thank you. Mr. CEO, did you want to say anything before we move on?
We'll move out.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I sort of don't want to now because I think it's Bob's words were a good way to end it. But we, as a staff and as the officials, we wanted to thank you all for serving as councillors. It's as a number of you have suggested, it's an extraordinary commitment to both community and to the task of representing people, but also the task of taking risks and looking to the future for this community. So it is remarkable. We've made you read copious amounts of material. We've left the really difficult decisions to you, and we've also, I guess, been able to extract out of you your wisdom and your guidance, and I think, as Bob especially pointed out, a great legacy of projects that we should all be proud of. So the staff did want to thank you for the support also. It's not often that you have councillors who are as supportive of staff as this group has been, and also councillors that are aware of what the staff are going through. So to recognise that, we've put together a little plaque, and we will provide these to the councillors when we do get the opportunity to see you. We'll also provide one to Councillor Francis as well. But it's just a small token of the appreciation of the staff for the outstanding job that this council has done. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Martin. Thank you, everyone. We will now move back onto the agendas into item 19, confidential items, that in accordance with section 66(1) and 66(2)(a) of the Local Government Act 2020, the meeting will be closed to members of the public for the consideration of the following confidential items. 19.1, confirmation of the 17th September 2020 confidential council minutes. So we will, the recommendations there. Can I get someone moving second?
I'll move.
Move Councillor Merriman, seconded. Councillor Pizzi, thank you. All those in favour?
All right.
Thank you. So we will just wait while